Okay, hello everyone, thank you for coming today. I'm Tyler, and welcome to the Archives if you've never been here, and thanks for coming back if you have been before. Today we have Jerry Worley with us, who's from Wolf Point and now lives in Billings, but he was also a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. And today he will be presenting on the 1973 Class A state championship between Butte Central and Cut Bank, and those teams and the communities those kids came from. Again, thank you, Jerry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Before we get going, I'm going to introduce a few people. So you know some people that are in the room, you might want to talk to them after the presentation. We thought some of these people were coming today. Is Ted here?
Didn't see him.
Okay. We have Steve Baldwin. Thank you. You raise your hand. State champion, long jump, triple jump, had the state record in the triple jump for about 3 minutes until Steve broke it, and then it held for 48 years. And it was broken last year. So then we have my friends Jim and Carol Baldwin. They're from many places, but Carol is from, is it Edinburgh, North Dakota? Epping, North Dakota. And students, did you know that Epping, North Dakota once had a 93-game losing streak? So, dear friends, I taught with him in Wolf Point, and at one time they taught in Antelope High School. They taught in Antelope, Montana until the high school burned down in 1978. Jim's also been to Lambert, Wolf Point, Sydney. He's currently superintendent at Twin Bridges. He has his own cottage industry as far as jumping in and helping out with superintendency every year. Jim coached Wolf Point girls to the state title in 1987. He had a couple Salty Boys teams that took second and fourth in the 80s. And he also coached the 1981 Sydney Legion team to the state title. And many, many more accolades. Butch, are you here? Butch Damberger. Okay, he texted me, yeah. Paul said he might show up, Paul Dennehy. Bill Foley. Okay. Ray, Happy. Not here. Jim Haugen. Okay. Doreen Kowalski.
No.
Okay. Ron's sister. And then we have Ron, the coach of the Cut Bank Wolves, showed up today. And his lovely wife Diane. And he was also the assistant coach at the University of Montana, correct? Correct. Jim O'Day. There's Jim. Thanks for coming, Jim. He was in this game. He played. He watched from the sidelines on this very cold day. Played a little basketball, but he ended up at the University of Montana AD, and he's going to end up hiring Ron in 2001, and they would as an assistant, and they would win the national championship under Joe Glenn. Correct?
Correct.
I don't think the Pacers showed up. Did Steve show up? Steve?
Not here.
Okay. We're also presenting at the Knights tonight. So Moose Patrice, there's Moose. He was on the 72 team. He was captain of the 72 team. So when I first started studying the Wolf Point Butte Central game the year before, Moose was gracious enough. We drove around. We looked at the pit where he was basically raised in McQueen. We went to every parish. I think about 8 or 9 parishes. Is Mike Sheridan here? He was a quarterback for Cut Bank. He lives in Billings. I sat down with him. It was a wonderful interview. David Stingle. Dave was the quarterback for Wolf Point. John Thatcher. Hewlin Brothers, not here.
Rick Rayworth.
And Rick Rayworth is here, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Anybody else, please raise your hand, or if somebody's not talking, drop a dime on somebody and say, this is so-and-so. So we can talk to one another when we're finished if we have time. Anybody? I see Dan Thomas's sister back there, Mary Ann. Anybody else?
Mary Jo Stosich is here,
Okay.
Steve's wife.
Oh, and where is she? Oh, thank you for coming. All right, anybody else? Thank you. Who am I? My name is Jerry Worley, Professor Emeritus. My last football game I played, we lost 47-0 to Glendock. And I never wanted to go through that again. And I've always wanted to belong to something where I could be pushed. So I taught high school for 11 years, and then I stepped off the cliff and I went to University of Southern Mississippi to earn my doctorate degree. So I went full time, and I went through the gauntlet there. And then I went through the gauntlet of going from assistant professor to associate to full to senior faculty member at the University of Wisconsin in Eau Claire. And football and the military and my parents really helped me make it through that gauntlet. So I'm happily retired right now. I was in 21 years at higher ed. I taught at Southern Miss, Mercer University. They're a Division I school just south of Atlanta. That's why if you see that 478 number, I have a Georgia South. And I retired from the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire. I've been east of the Mississippi for 21 years. And I missed Montana, so I did a one-year gig at MSU Billings, and then I bookended my career 1 year at Wolf Point High School, 22-23. I taught methods of teaching social studies and methods of teaching, classroom management. I'm an American veteran. Any questions?
Where do you live now?
I live in Billings. I never thought I'd end up there, but I'm learning to like it, and I have a friend or two. So, so this is all about memories, you know, sharing memories, a little bit of therapy, calling people up, having great talks with people. So that's why we're here. It's just a game of football, but we can share memories over any subject. I did a gig last year with the Wolf Point game, Wolf Point versus Butte Central. Why? I wanted to write about it because the town had forgotten about the 72 team. And Wolf Point is a basketball town, as Jim knows pretty much. They'll have a football run here and there. But anyway, that's how I got started. So that was kind of a hit. A lot of people showed up. And I was hoping Dave Stengel would show up today, but he didn't. Last year in 72 there were 3 divisions. So Butte Central got a bye, and Libby won the West, and so they went on a 4-day trip to Wolf Point to play on a Saturday afternoon. And they were beating Wolf Point 8-0 in the middle of the second quarter until Stengel and the boys opened up, and Wolf Point ended up winning 27-8. And that set up the game with Butte Central here at Naranche. And that story's on 406, by the way, if you want to read it. It's all about the memories. So here's some of the people that had passed from that game, both from Wolf Point and Butte Central. And by the way, I'm going to finish right at 1 o'clock. This is a 2-hour show. I'm going to make it in 1 hour. So I'm going to race through some stuff. If you want to stop and talk afterwards, and if you want to go over any slide, I will. Happy to do that. If you see people you recognize. This is the Cup Bank team, 1973. I love this image because they must be tuned in to Coach Kowalski, but you got an automobile on the sideline. You know, and kids got thrown into automobiles and they got hurt. And I got a story for you. This is Big Ed Thompson from Wolf Point, and he graduated, I want to say, in the late 50s. He was one of Bob Lowry's kids. He lost an entire season because he got driven into an automobile on Moccasin Flats, the old Lowry Field, south of Fairweather Street in Wolf Point. So tonight at the Knights we'll go over some funny stories, but my dad was good friends with Big Ed, and so was your dad, Jim, probably. Yep. Montana Highway Department. Yep. Big Ed Thompson was the nephew of Victor Bearskin. And here's Victor. This is Wolf Point versus Scobie in an old Cracker Box gym. Cup Bank has built a couple of huge, beautiful gymnasiums. We're going to talk about that today. But people just got tired of playing in these small spaces. Bearskin ended up participating in rodeo for MSU, the old MSC. He was a top calf roper for them. He wasn't allowed to score points because he was a freshman, but he died on the Bozeman Pass going to MSU's big rodeo. in the spring of '54. And Jeff Welch has that story, and he said he's going to print it in the Bozeman Chronicle. That's quite a story. Victor Bearskin really brought people together in Wolf Point. Another, is Mr. Powell here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Mr. Powell's coach. This is Bob Lowry Jr. from Wolf Point, graduated in '58. And we're going to talk about him today. And we're going to talk about the death of a Wolf Point athlete that's, you know, we have to laugh at sadness at times, but anyway, Larry Grambois, the brother of Mike Grambois. Mike Grambois, the father of Tom Grambois and the Poplar Indians of 1974 and 75. You probably remember when they came to the Civic Center here. This was his uncle, and he died of an appendix issue. And funny story, all of his pallbearers were having a little bit too much fun at the funeral. And the funeral directors told them, better knock it off because we have to get Larry buried here and all this kind of stuff. Well, it was raining in Poplar. They had to drive Larry to Poplar, and they ended up, Big Ed ended up slipping and falling. He fell into the grave, and he's holding. So like half the funeral procession is horrified, and his buddies are laughing, and Lyman Clayton is pissed off. You know. So we'll go into that story a little bit. Yeah. So Shelby, arch enemies with Cup Bank. And so I have some humorous, quite possibly the biggest S ever. This is 1960. And the same year they got, I don't know, for some reason they have X's on their uniforms. They're playing Haber Central, by the way, in the Haber Central gym. So this is some of the stuff I love. I love some of this old trivia. And we don't have a lot of time to go through it. I get a kick out of this one. I got it from an annual. This team was 0-8. 8-man team, and they wore their helmets for the picture. And so, yeah. But they lost some close games. Yeah. And Ron was coaching Win It at one time. He wasn't coaching then, but take a look at that goalpost. This is early '60s. And they're getting, this team, I know the team, they're getting ready to, I think, receive a kickoff. And the cheerleaders are out. Yeah, I have relatives in Win It. They wouldn't stand for goalposts like that. But guess who was at Moore High School? Bob Petrino. And District 9 winners one year. Yep. And Haber Central High, 1966. I love this image. That's the whole high school. And I think they closed about 68 or 69. They're Class B. I talked to some of them. And, you know, they would start with like 85 kindergartners or, you know, first graders. But by the time they were seniors, they're using 25 or 30. And the reason for that was there just wasn't enough activities in the Catholic school there for them. So they would drift over to the public school. Okay. Missoula Hellgate cheerleaders, Big 32. This is 1966-67. Great image. And then I was hoping Ted would be here, but this is the last year of the Big 32, and Ted played on a really good CMR team. And they ended up getting fourth. They lost to Butte Central. Yeah. We're going to talk about realignment today. We have a brand new Northern A conference we're going to talk about today. And they always have had issues with realignment, especially the AA schools. So this is in the 1940s here. The Big Six becomes the Big Five. And I think Kalispell dropped down to Class A. So these AA football teams are traveling to, you know, they're trying to set up games with Utah teams and Everett, Washington. They did play them in Grand Forks, North Dakota. So it was a scramble to play bigger schools. And here we have a headline here. Sorry about all this information, but Great Falls Bisons, they are nipped by the Everett Seagulls, and they seek revenge from Grand Forks the next game. Those are long trips. Isn't that something? Yeah. I love this. This is the, you know, Title IX. We're really interested in Title IX. 1973 state basketball tournament in Miles City, and Anacona won it. Moose, I need some help with this.
Red Manahan was coach.
Yeah, he's the coach. And in those days, they were called you wouldn't take on the name of the boys' team. They came up with different names. They're called the Copper A's. Yep. This is a great image, kids that believe in their coach. Also, Antelope, I did this, I would do it anyway, but I'm glad Carol and Jim are here. This is the year that Antelope burned down. This is grades 4 through 6, one teacher. Jim and Carol were there. This is Brian Crumley. Antelope didn't have football. So they burned down, school burned down. Brian goes to Medicine Lake. They have football. He shines for the Medicine Lake Conquerors. They played for the state championship, I think, when it was 30 below versus, I don't know, Terry or Savage. Terry. That game was so cold, the officials had to stop it for the kids to warm up. But Brian's going to end up getting a scholarship to the Bobcats. And he was a leading receiver, I think, one year, 50 receptions. All hail Central. What a school. I mean, it was an apex moment for them as far as enrollment. There's the football team, Letterman. I dug up a couple jewels. This is the broadest newspaper, Powder River, 1921. The football team of Butte Central High School will be ordered disbanded. Smoking of cigarettes and other violations of the training rules are given as a cause. And it's the same day, the same paper, the same cut bank. The old cut bank flour mill was burned a few days ago. Owing to the crop failure and other causes, the manufacture of flour had been discontinued and the buildings contained virtually new machinery and cost in the neighborhood of $10,000. So, life on the High Line, life in Montana. I need some help with this. This was picture day, correct? Columbia Gardens, Butte Central, the old roller coaster.
The gardens are just closed.
The gardens are just closed. And I found these wonderful images in an outstanding the annual 1974. One of my favorite annuals to read. Just some great images here. The last prom was spring of 1973. Moose Patrice told me about that at the Columbia Gardens. I think Butte High had their proms there too, right? Anaconda Company and ARCO were busy merging. They shut it down and started mining. Only a few wooden roller coasters were left in the world at the time, and then the pavilion burned down shortly thereafter. By the way, if anybody wants to add something really fast with a few seconds, we can do that. If you want to add, if I make a mistake and you want to add a little bit of elaboration. I love this image of boys angst, teen angst, boys being boys, hanging out, hair getting longer, 1973. Yeah, Butte Central. I don't like using hyperbole, but some fantastic cross-country teams, boys and girls. Outstanding, if you look at the time. There's the letterman for the cross-country alone. Isn't that amazing? And then boy cheerleaders. There were boy cheerleaders this year, and Nancy Yurkich, the head cheerleaders behind this, organized those. You guys didn't know that Ringo Starr went to Butte Central? So Jim O'Day from Cut Bank is the AD at Montana. A sophomore at this time, walking the halls of Butte Central is Rob Spear. He's going to end up the AD of University of Idaho, 2 Big Sky teams. What a coaching staff. I mean, dedicated. I never use the word amazing when I write, but it was an amazing staff.
Is that Sweet Tennyson in the lower right?
Yes, it is. Yep. And he ran his, this is Swede here, Thatch and Steve. These were the varsity coaches. I apologize, I don't know the names of the assistants, but they were very good. They had a freshman team, they had a JV team. Okay, who do we have here?
That's Reagan, that's Tara, Kautzman, Jack Reagan, Jack Porter.
And I can attest that those were very good coaches. And then remembering Swede, this would be a 2-hour presentation on Swede, and it's not, but in his honor, everything positive about Butte Central football, Swede had something to do with it. Something to do with it, yeah. And you can't do it without a good coach's wife, can you, Diane? 2 types of coach's wives, right?
Right.
Dedicated and X. Is that yeah. Bart was something else, yeah. Wow, Butte Central versus Butte High. And Cup Bank crowd doesn't want to hear it, or Wolf Point or Havre, but to many of the Central players would rather beat Butte High than win a state title. For some, maybe all. Butte was a city, and this is the drill team during a parade, and it just this building and this excitement. Butte had a citified atmosphere. What's the name of that building?
Montana Theater.
Yeah, which is down, yeah. We have a new Class A alignment. So the year before we had 23, 3 divisions. Now we have 32, 4 divisions. And by the way, I have a big map out there for if you guys want to, and I have all the enrollments. But the year before, here were the enrollments. Havre, because Havre Central's closed. Today I think there are 500. So the year before, and then Wolf Point was lowest. And by the way, schools fudged on their numbers. I seriously doubt if we had that many when I went to school there. They fudged for financial reasons, right? Maybe, Jim? Or?
A and B.
Yeah. And here's the new Class A. Notice we're bringing up 3 new teams. And I'll tell you, they didn't back down. Pauper's going to win the first 2 Class A basketball tournaments. And they're going to have an excellent football team. Plentywood's going to win the Class A in '76. They have an outstanding football team. Baker was salty in a few sports as well. And here's how it ended up in '73. From Poplar to Miles City, any of these 4 could have won it. In fact, on the last game of the season, Miles City played Poplar on a Saturday afternoon. I listened to it, KBCK Wolf Point. If Poplar would have won, they would have won the Eastern A with 250 kids. And Plentywood won in 6-2 and 6F, Bob Lowry's team, Bob Lowry Jr.'s team. He had the best team in Plentywood's history. He told referee Ed Helgeson after game, said, I got the best team in Plentywood's history. I can't win a game. So they would lose 14-8 and 22-14. There's Bob Lowry Jr., graduated 58. He went to Stanford University, loved by his classmates. He passed away, I think, age 48. His dad about age 56. Like Coach Kowalski, the field in Wolf Point's named after Bob Lowry Sr. They named it after him when he was in like his 40s. They had a ceremony. They had heard he was going to leave. So anyway, there's the Poplar football team in 1972 at Class B, and they're very good. They district champs. I think they might have won the division. They didn't have state playoffs. You just play the other district for the Eastern Crown. That's their football picture in the annual. About half of them are missing. But they had some really good coaching in Poplar.
Rich Dean?
Rich Dean would come the next year. Rich Dean was friends with Ron. So this is 72. They're still Class B. Here's all of their all-conference with 2 or 3 missing, including Dana Kern. The great Dana Kern is missing. But he was all conference. Here's Class A enrollments, the Central Division. We can see Bozeman and Anaconda are going to go up to AA. And then it becomes the South with no new B teams. And that's how it ended up. And basically, some people would say it was a cakewalk for Central, but their toughest game was with Livingston. That was a closer game. There's a Western A the year before. Livy is going to go to AA. Anaconda Central is going to close their doors. Yep. And there's the new Western A. Ronan, first year they win the state wrestling title in Glasgow, 32 teams, the Ronan Chiefs. And that's how they ended up. That Cut Bank's going to end up beating two of these teams, Columbia Falls and Whitefish. This was the proposed Northern A in the spring. Notice we have Great Falls Central. The year before they had 700 kids and they were in double A. They chose to stay in double A. But they're going to end up closing. So they don't play in the Northern A. They bring up Shoto with 220 kids. That's the most enrollment of all Class A teams.
They were tough.
And they were tough in many sports. There's our new Northern A division. That was a salty division, and they were not pushovers. They thought Fort Benton was going to win it. 1973 may be the year of Longhorn and Northern A. Malta had a great team, by the way. And it was exciting. I remember, all these new B teams are going to play A ball. So here's one out of, I think, the Missoulian. Loyola makes a big debut in Class A ball Saturday. I think Shoto went there to play them. Here's how they did. Here's the scores of the first weekend. I'll go through them quickly. Polson edged Shelby, Cutbank dominated Whitefish, Conrad beat Lewistown, Glasgow Malta 6-0, Browning beat Eureka, Helena Capital beat Fort Benton. That was Helena Capital's first year of football. They played sophomores and juniors. They played at Butte Stadium. And Shoto over Missoula Loyola, and then Wolf Point beat Chinook. That's when we saw Dan Davies in action, came to Wolf Point, receiver. And here's how they ended up. I would say these six would have had a chance to win. Chinook almost beat Shoto, and Shoto beat Cutbank. That was a big upset. And even Browning gave Cutbank a go there for a while. This is the Helena Capital Fort Benton game. Today Fort Benton's Class C. There's their coach, a little fired up. And from what I understand, Tim Dennison stayed there a while. I just do this. This is Helena High. They're getting ready to play Capital for their first meeting. And these are the middle linebackers. And their weight was ranged from 140 to 165. It was a different time period. And then in the meantime, AA Great Falls High loses to Boise Capital, 21-14. The Northern A, rest in peace, 1973 to 1980. They were no shrinking violet. Steve, did we introduce you? Did we introduce you?
You mentioned my name.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Did I mention you were meetup champion in the triple jump? Did I mention that? I'm sorry if I did. Raise on.
It was out there.
Yeah. Sorry about that if I did. They were no shrinking violet. There's the conferences. If you want to look at this later, we can take a look at it. Really good game. And then the next year, Malta would lose to Glendive in Glendive. Bob Lowry. These are Bob Lowry Jr. teams right there. He said, "The heck with Plentywood, man. I want to go to school with 900 kids." And then Shoto did quite well. They lost the semis to Glendive. Glendive was state champs these 2 years. And then Conrad lost to Deer Lodge. There's the Shoto team. Ron Kowalski's good friend, Rich Dean, coached. He left Poplar to coach Shoto. And then later, if you want to see the old Northern A all-conference, we can take a look at those. These are really interesting. I want to say this about the 11. Cutbank played 11 players in '73. They went both ways, and every one of them made all-conference sometime in their career. And then on the side, there was only 25 kids on the team. And then on the sidelines were 10, 12 other kids that didn't see much playing time. No, about 15 other kids. I would say 10, at least 10 of those made all conference later. And I would say at least 3 or 4 were D1 level, according to many people. Coach Kowalski was setting the table for cutbank. So this was his second year, right, Coach?
His head coach, right?
Yeah. So the year before, Class B. Think about Highline people. There's some in here. They're resilient. We're basically independent. Individualism dominates. A lot of us leave forever and we never return. There's not a lot of opportunity up there. You know, we find other homes. But Ron Kowalski was a key ingredient in establishing a football culture in Cutbank for many years. He represented stability. And the kids bought in. Butte Central, confident, experienced. They had a war room of experienced coaches. I counted Butte High today has 28 titles. I don't know if they counted some of those with Fort Shaw. Butte Central has 7, correct? There's a tradition that the city of Butte is provincial. You know, when I went to MSU teacher training, they told us, don't put in for a job in Butte, you won't get hired. They hire their own. And it wasn't a negative connotation, you know. You know, I can see that Butte people look out for themselves, their heritage, their history, their school, their family influences and shapes sports, academics, visual and performing arts, other extracurricular. So more collectivist society. There's a little bit of a difference. We don't have a Knights of Columbus in those highline towns, you know. All right. Moose, I'm going to switch my PowerPoints here, so if you want to say anything, or if anybody wants to say anything, they can, or add anything, please.
While you're doing that?
Yeah.
Finish up. So I would just say, Jerry, I think most of us on the team, we weren't really aware of the realignment. We just weren't paying attention. You know, we're 17 years old. So it's kind of interesting to see all this. What you have the whole northern B moved up and everything got switched around. You know, so Libby went up to AA, Anaconda, Hammer, and Bozeman. So before that, we always played Bozeman.
That's right.
All right. All right, let's take a trip to Cutbank. I didn't know anything about Cutbank, and really I didn't know anything about the 73 Maroons. I really didn't know a lot, so I spent a year on it, you know, a little at a time, talking. And, I love this, well, you know, this is versus Chinook, so it's one of my favorite pictures. You have, this is the great Clark Smith. This is probably Steve Smith. I think this is Mike Sheridan. That's probably Brent, right? Right there. Very good players. Okay. This is Cutbank Creek. Cutbank Gorge, I guess. Probably some pretty good hunting. And here we go. We'll zoom in on some highline. Here we have Glacier Park. Here's Browning, Cutbank, Shelby. Chester used to be Class B. Valier used to be Class B. And Conrad. Is this Highway 15?
Yeah.
Or,
That's 15.
15, yeah.
Yeah, but Valier and Chester never, they were never A.
Right.
Right, okay.
They were Class B at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've, you know, they've tumbled in enrollment. All of these towns have, yeah. And then we're zoomed in here. And then from Shelby to Cutbank, about 23 miles, correct? Arch enemies, very similar towns. But this is the oil patch. And then north, we had a lot of oil activity north. But Oilmont had a high school. Sunburst used to be Class B. Keevan, from what I understand, shipped some kids to Sunburst. Okay? So I got these quotes, some people, Sunburst School District ran a bus from Keevan to Sunburst. Sunburst built a brand new school during this time. There's some money up there. Cut Bank, Montana borders the Blackfeet Reservation. It was probably 2 to 3% native in 1973. From one source today, thought maybe it was 50% native. And correct me if I'm wrong, I tried to find some information on that. The Great Northern Railroad, of course that helped. Homesteading, farming, ranching. Oil boom in 1920. They peaked in population about 4,500. So I'm from Wolf Point, that's when we peaked at 3,600. And today they're about 3,000. So 1960 was kind of peak population for the towns and cities, but peak enrollment would kind of come about 10 years later for some reason. I found this brochure on Cut Bank. Probably late 50s, early 60s. Oil, grain, cattle. Capital of northern Montana. Here are some of the businesses. Oil field, high per capita income, outstanding school system, wealth, there was wealth. Businesses contributed to youth activities. Many Cut Bank graduates worked in the oil field. Jim O'Day remembers the $100 bills in the bars. And that went out east to Baker, Montana. I've heard stories of wealthy ranchers flashing $100 bills in the 1950s before basketball games, betting. Sunburst lost their refinery. I'm going to start picking it up here, make sure I finish in time. Oil Mart start to lose players. This is a friend of mine, Jim Peterson, coached football at Oilmont from 58 to 60, coached basketball too. He played for Billings Senior High. He's in the Rocky Mountain College Hall of Fame, but he coached and taught at Oilmont. First year he taught, it was 6-man and he had 8 players. Then they moved him up to 8-man and he got 10 players out, and they won half their games. Cut Bank has a tradition of winning in several sports, several titles. This is one of their most renowned coaches, Willie DeBroke, Montana High School Hall of Fame, 3 titles, and many more accolades, I guess. State champs twice, I'm sorry. Then Wolf Point builds a big gym in about 54. Cut Bank builds a big one in 59. Shelby about 60, 61. They start to take the tournaments away from Glasgow and other towns. This is the 62 state tournament in Cut Bank. Wolf Point won this one. Big Bill Smith played for Wolf Point, and next year or two they'll go Big 32, Wolf Point. Cut Bank should have been Big 32, but they fought it because they would have been Class A in football, and they would have had to cross the mountains to play those teams. Plus, I think maybe go all the way down to Dillon and Deer Lodge. So they stayed in Class B. There's the old Glasgow Civic Center. They used to have a lot of the tournaments, but they might have. They said they seated 2,000, but I seriously doubt it. So they're going to get aced out by these visionary high schools of Wolf Point, Cut Bank, Shelby. Ronnie built a new gym, but it only, I think, 2,500. Big Sandy wins the state title in Shelby in 1963 in basketball. Circle Wildcats win it in Shelby in 1965. Here's the great Don Schillinger, coach of Baker, right there. Yeah. Shelby hosted the 1975 Class A girls basketball tournament. This is when it really was the big 42, because they put the A and the AA together to make the A in 1975. So Shelby hosted that tournament. And C.M. Russell won it. CMR. Yeah. This is the showcase team for Cut Bank. It was the 66 Cut Bank Wolves. Very good team. That state tournament was in Glendive versus Chester on the Highline. There they are. Jim, do you want to mention any of the top dogs? We have Don Wetzel from Cut Bank and
Jay Larson,
Larson, yeah.
Rob Quist.
Rob Quist, as in Mission Mountain Wood Band. Yeah. I took those names down, Jim, but I don't have them with me. So this is in Glendive. At the same time, Cut Bank Gym, the new gym The old gym burned down in '69, I think. Yeah. They're building a new one. Yeah. So during this football game, they're building a new one. There it is.
We actually practiced there because it was so cold.
It was so cold the week of the title game, yeah. And 1974 graduated 100 students even in the new gym. This is homecoming. Cup Bank. Here's some articles about schools fudging on how much their gyms hold. And so we had, last name was Reimel. Was he principal of?
Right.
Yeah. He said, I've been here 11 years, I counted the seats, there's 4,100. But out in the press, it was 5,000 or 5,500. And then they were kind of mad at Glendive for stealing that state tournament, and some paper said that Cup Bank's at 6,000, you know. So I'll leave it up to you. They really wanted those tournaments. They put the A and AA together as far as girls basketball goes. Chinook won the title in 1974. They beat Great Falls High, but they would meet in the state championship, and Great Falls got them back. Cup Bank wrestling was excellent. 3 state titles there. The whole High Line, Malta, Cup Bank, Big Sandy Chester, big winning streak. Fred Volkman was the wrestling coach at Cup Bank. Cross country was big. Cup Bank and Butte Central, 1973. Cup Bank 3rd, Butte Central 4th. Here's some of the girls. I'm going to read off Mary Pat Murphy, Cup Bank. Rose McCormick, Butte Central. Jeannie Gilligan, Cup Bank. Jan Downing, Butte Central. Boys cross country, Butte Central beat Cup Bank for the title. And 4 points is pretty close. Look who they beat. Browning. Browning's going to run off 11 straight titles after this. 10A and 1B. McDougal from Butte Central. Pat Prue, Cup Bank. He's top 10 here. John Marinovich, Cup Bank. Doug Smith, Cup Bank. Chuck Olmsted, Cup Bank. Bob Mezek, Butte Central. Coach Reynolds was the coach for Cup Bank. And I think, was it a brother?
Brother Kelly.
Yeah, Butte Central has a tremendous team. Legion Baseball was big along that High Line. Cup Bank, it was very big. A lot of these players from Cup Bank played Legion. There's the homecoming band there, excellent band. There's the drill team. A-squad cheerleaders. There we go. Sue Stordahl, I'm talking about her a little bit. The Stordahls went from being a middle-class family to below the poverty line. Why? Their mother got sick and kidney issues, and the entire town of Cup Bank chipped in. I want to say they raffled new cars, and they got Sue's mother to Seattle. So mother became ill, kidney transplant, Seattle. They flew her to Seattle once a year, and they paid for it. Town of Cup Bank. The town supported the family and other people too. The wealth of Cup Bank made it easier to help. Businesses and individuals contributed for decades. Betty Davenport Jr., she was the lead cheerleader. And I'm just going to name them as I'm running out of time. Jan Ellert, Jane Cooper, very competitive. They had to try out in front of the whole student body. Shirley Pfeiffer Jr., Kim Sheridan, she was an alternate. She's the cousin of the quarterback. And then Lana Stevens is senior. Okay. Manager, Jay Jacobson. Steve Griffin, manager. Coach Kowalski, of course. Tonight we'll go over more in depth, but Coach Kowalski is really from Klein, Montana. Klein is 3 miles south of Roundup, and they had a high school. It closed in about 1955 or 56. Ron went to school in Klein up until 8th grade. His dad worked on the number 3 mine in Roundup. It was very dangerous. Just like Butte. Roundup, Klein, Coal Belt. Father and uncles were big influence. Always interested in sports. The kids loved him, said one former player. he projected an aura of stability. Hall of Fame, Montana High School Hall of Fame, 3 titles, 1 national championship. We'll go over this in depth at the Knights tonight. He took care of that field, and it's named after him. There's stories about every blade of grass was in it. Yeah. And he's from Klein, and I'm so sad I'm going to race through this, but Klein had some firepower. They won the state title in 1942, by the way. This is Ron, little brother John. And look at them, they're screwing around because all these guys got their hands behind their back. Look at that, come on.
Hey, one thing, check out 12, third from the right. Check, just look all the way to the bottom.
Oh,
Everybody's stepping on his hip.
hey, they still do that these days, you know. Anyway, very dangerous. I talked to the librarian in Roundup, doing research. Her mother worked in the hospital. They were always working on the miners in the Roundup Klein area. And there's grades 1 through 12. And there were Klein Bears. And I'm so sad I got to race through this, but if you know, after I'm done today, we can look at it. But sports was very big in Klein. And it messed around. I think this had a big influence on Ron's life. They did quite well. Football, they were Class B. The Bears, yeah, there we go. Hey, they didn't mess around. They played Lewistown, first game, Class A. They go to Miles City and hang with the Cowboys. Yep. And in 1942, they were state champions in Class B. In those days, you'd have 4 Bs and 4 As meet for the state tournament. A bracket would settle it, B bracket settle it. It was in Livingston. So the favorite of the entire tournament was Wolf Point. But Klein beat them for the Class B title. Senior beat a very good Butte High team for the A title. And then they went at it in Livingston, and Klein had the lead at halftime. But they're going to end up losing the game. This is quite a story. This is George Racky. He's going to end up, a lot of these guys would end up fighting in World War II. But he saw some things when he was shipped to Europe. I won't go into it. He had a certain job that was horrible. And it affected him for the rest of his life. He was captain of that team. They would lose the Billings for the all class. But the next year, senior, there's no state tournament, so senior schedules a home and home with them. And Klein beat him on the roundup floor. So, anyway, I'm sorry I have to race through this, but there's Ron's dad doing a little fishing. Is that a northern pike? I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, here's Ron and Diane with their sons Mike and Pete. And one of them was on the 95 Grizzly team, right? Yeah. And did they both play football? Yeah. And Ron played baseball. Very good Babe Ruth team. They were state champs in Legion. He went to high school at Roundup. Little football action there. Coach mad at him. They won every game, but they lost to Lodgegrass. Yeah, Diane's right here, elementary teacher. She met Ron in school, the perfect coach's wife. I don't know if she ever missed one of his games, whether playing or coaching, always beside him. Fabulous wife, friend, mother, and sister-in-law. No one else could have filled her shoes with Ron. Both sons went 1 and 2 in the 300 hurdles at state. Ron's assistant was Mick Oden. Did I pronounce that correctly? English teacher, backfield coach. They speak highly of him. Ron was meticulous, and he always gave credit to the players and the coaches. There's the offense. There's the defense. Pretty much the same players. They had a heck of a defense. Football practices, infinite levels of hell. Not a lot of kids went out in those first years. But once they started winning, they wanted to play. They wanted to be pushed. And I don't mean Ron punished them. There were just some tough kids on that roundup team. Sheridan, I sat down with him, what a great interview. He was a junior. He has some great quotes. He's a tough kid. He went both ways. Nobody expected us to be good. They came out of nowhere. I'm going to breeze through this. This was the showcase. It was Steve Smith. Many have said D1 caliber. He's going to end up going to Carroll. First team Northern A. It was tough to make all-conference Northern A. Stellar career at Carroll. Division I potential. Pretty damn fast and rugged. Carroll College had high-scoring crew with Steve Smith leading the attack. There he is right there with that great-looking 1970s mustache. Look at him. He's an athlete, Steve Smith. Brent Goldrick was a tailback. He was a junior, all-conference, accomplished wrestler. Best pitcher on the Legion team. 2,400 yards rushing in high school. Started in the Shrine game. Played football at Carroll, boxer at Carroll. He blew his knee out wrestling his senior year. That really hurt his football career at Carroll. Mechanical engineer out of Montana State. He put himself through college by working in the oil fields. Joe Davenport, all conference, flanker on offense, good hitter. He also would coach and teach in Deer Lodge. Rick Stark, in memory. First team, center and linebacker, also a wrestler. Look at these weight classes he shined in. He said he and Bill Duncan were the best hitters on that team, the smaller guys. Dan Duke, in memory, first team Northern A guard, first team lineman, D1 potential, they said. Starting both ways in the Shrine game, ran a 4.85 at Tech. Not too bad. But he's going to end up breaking his arm. Strongest guy I ever met. Dominated as a freshman at Tech. Broke his arm. Went to MSU. Walked on. Doing well. Broke his arm again. And then afterwards, he received some letters from the Chiefs and the Raiders. In memory, Dave Marquette, another star lineman. They were just loaded. Shrine game alternate. First team in memory, he just passed. His family was from Boston, and he became a water rights attorney. He was also into rodeo and many, many other areas. Kind of like Matt Buckley. He was into everything, Clark Smith, first team. Jim O'Day, practice for hell. Here comes Smith and Smith on a sweep. So Jim's got to fight off the block rather than tackle these Division I people. Clark was state champion, Class A in the shot put. And the year before, state champ, Class B shot put. Railroad career, he lives in Livingston. He's a big kid. Darryl DeKay, another strong kid. He was a 51-foot shot putter. Real tough guy. He was a returning all-conference player. Good athlete, good size. He lives in Glendive. Rick Rayward. We are honored to have him. All-conference. The best basketball player at Cup A. State placer in track. Good athlete. And then just tore it up in the frontier at Western. Thanks for coming, by the way. Yeah, good to see you. Gordon Flitt, senior, 2-year letterman, played quite a bit, basketball and golf, and his dad was the superintendent. Dale Nygaard, another outstanding wrestler, saw a little playing time, they could count on him, played quite a bit. Jim Johnston, junior, first-year player, saw playing time. Dave Bell, starting wide receiver. Teams did not throw towards Bell. Shrine game alternate, D1 potential. Craig Cummings, didn't see any action in this game. However, later he'd be an excellent cover corner. Technique was superior. It was like having a second coach on the field. He's going to have a wonderful education career, 29 years, teacher, administrator. When he passed, Belgrade had a memorial for him. He was there, but then Belt also had a memorial for him in the gym. And then he taught at these other places. Bert McCormick, in memory. He started as a sophomore, saw a lot of action, but he had a knee injury. They said he would have been an excellent player if he wouldn't blown out his knee. Jim Grissetti would go on to be all-conference, one of those guys that came out of nowhere. Dean Nygaard, an excellent athlete, was a very good basketball player, consistent scorer in basketball. There's Jim, future AD at Montana. He hired Ron for the Grizzlies. Yeah, we won a national title. And a very good basketball player for Cup Bank Wolves. Good ups, they said, rebounder, nice touch around the rim. Bart Schaefer, in memory, would eventually end up all-conference, dedicate himself to the weight room. I think when they won in that 73, the other kids looked around and said, you know, we want to be a part of this. Tom Deal, did I pronounce that right? Deal, another one. They were loaded. Transitioned well into his senior year. Randy Huss, he was only 122 pounds at the time, actually a quarterback, but he's going to end up first team wide receiver the next 2 years. In memory for Randy. Here's Joe Ludwig, running back, future first team both ways, and then he competed against Steve in that triple jump for the Butte champions. I think he took 4th. Murray Hartford, sophomore, running back, future all-conference. It just keeps going. Grover Smith, future all-conference. Ron Askelson, future all-conference, future everything. D1 football potential. He could throw smoke in American Legion. Bill Duncan, another sleeper here. But he filled in. Someone was hit. Someone was hurt in the Columbia Falls playoff game. And he did a nice job as a sophomore filling in. Butch Danberger's on the sidelines, freezing. You know? And people said that baseball really gave him that confidence as an athlete. He's going to end up being quite a football player. He's going to end up, you know, he wants to be a basketball player. He's going to end up MVP of the Shrine game. Sonny Holland sees him, corners him in the locker room, signs him, and then he catches a touchdown pass in the national championship game against Elkhorn State as a freshman from Don Hewlin. Yeah. It's quite a story. And then you had all these other honorees that will come out of nowhere. They lost one game to Chinook. That was Shoto. That was homecoming. It was a crucible, that Northern A. And I will go over these games tonight, but they stopped Conrad's 31-game winning streak. They watched film on Conrad. We knew Conrad better than they knew themselves. I apologize, guys. I am going to go a little bit longer, so you can leave if you want. I really apologize for that. But I will be around. Malta, they said Malta had a great team. They almost lost this. Malta had a tremendous team. I have relatives in Malta. I know a lot of these guys. I mean, they were very good. Brent had a 99-yard run versus Browning. Browning gave him a goal. Shoto, big upset. At Cup Bank, homecoming. Shoto Bulldogs. In the meantime, Cup Bank Cross Country scores a perfect score. 1 through 5 runners beat all of Browning's runners. That's how good they were. Perfect score, meantime. Arch enemy, Shelby, Cup Bank 20, Shelby 6. Maybe the first time they beat him in 8 years. We hated Cup Bank. I had an aunt that lived there. I'm not going to say what that is. And then Fort Benton was favored, and I even think if Fort Benton won this game, that might have really messed things up as far as. But a big game here, and we'll have time to go into details later. But then they knocked off Columbia Falls in the playoffs. Mike Sheridan got 2 touchdowns. Craig Finberg was the quarterback. And I'm not going to go over the first team all-conference here, but man, who's next? Well, Butte Central, man. They came in with a badge and 2 6-guns, let me tell you. It was, yeah. So I would love this program. This is student art here. That's the program. So I'm gonna do Butte Central for about 15 minutes. I apologize for, running out of time, but, if anybody wants to say something, you can. Again, please come to the nights tonight.
Yeah, 6 o'clock tonight. Yeah, it's pretty, you'll go into more detail. I mean, it's really a 2-hour presentation.
All right, apex moment. Tyler needs some help here. It's not it's moving on this one, but I probably have to close one.
Yeah, there's the other one still.
Close that. All right. All right, there's quite a story with this picture. You come to the Knights tonight, they will tell you about it, but it was a muddy game versus Butte High. This is the 72 team, tradition. Great players on that 72 team. There's Moose, they used to practice on a Superfund site. You can't make this stuff up. They have reclaimed it today. They practiced on dirt on top of mine waste. Yeah. And, this is Butte. I made this map last year, where all the players live. This is where Moose Patrice lived. He lived in McQueen, Holy Savior Parish, which is in the pit today. Don Hewlin. I apologize to Dan, I don't have a picture of him. They would play for the Bobcats. Don averaged 10 yards a carry. It's just amazing. Here are the captains. Geisinger, Moose Patrice, Mike Ferreter. I am not a man. They are men. These guys are men. And DJ, right?
Yeah.
DJ O'Neill. And Mike Mahoney's going to end up warden of Deer Lodge, yeah.
Yeah,
Mike Ferreter was director of
correction.
Yeah, real great guys. Butte Central football, Naranche Stadium was their theater. Jim Conan was on this team. He's going to end up future head coach at Butte Central in the 80s, future head track coach at Butte Central. I think he coached at Montana Tech too. Butte High. Again, Livingston was a sort of a tough game. Butte High, kind of a tough game. They had talent, depth, the tradition of Butte City football. Butte family heritage. Their brothers played, their uncles played, their cousins played. High expectation, extreme competition amongst themselves, intrinsically motivated, extraordinary preparation. Swede Kennison kept those coaches. He'd pick up film at, 3 a.m. on a Saturday. They were there at 8 a.m. on a Sunday, and Thatch said they would sometimes go to 10:30 p.m. Grade every player, break down the film, and they had playoff experience coming into Cup Band. They had their own swag. There's all seniors that year. It's a big senior class. Great picture. Battle tested. They almost won 5 in a row. But Bozeman got them in 1970, and a lot of people, I've heard it many times, that the best of the 5 was the 70 team that didn't win. You hear about it. They beat Polson 26 in 1969. That was Petrino's team. Bozeman sets Montana sports on its ear. Big loss over in Bozeman. It was stunning. Bozeman turned the biggest shocker of the season in Montana high school football here Saturday, upsetting previously unbeaten and top-ranked Butte Central. Butte Central upset by Bozeman Hawks. This is Kalispell. So it was a 3-way tie. Billings Central appeared out of the title picture until Bozeman knocked out Butte Central's seemingly invincible Maroons. Dennis Erickson was the coach of that Central team. He coached there 1 year.
So they won the tiebreaker.
They won the tiebreaker.
Only one team went to.
Right, tiebreaker scores against the 3 teams. I was from Wolf Point. Billings Central flew to Wolf Point. Beat Wolf Point 42-0. Flew back. It was the first time I've seen a wide receiver, a real wide receiver, and that was the Dennis Erickson team. Help, I need some help here. Pep rally,
At the Fox Theater.
Fox Theater, Motherload. Maroons 3-73. They want to win 3 in a row under Swede Kennison. This is there were 8 parishes from this class that fed Central. So 44% came from St. Anne's, 20% IC, 14% St. Pat's. We can see this all the way down to Holy Savior. That's where Moose went. 3 graduate out of the 160, 173.
That's interesting, isn't it?
It's interesting. They weren't evenly, yeah. A lot of pride. Maroon managers, we have Jim with us today. Thank you, Jim, for coming. Be sure to talk to Jim. He remembers everything. 3 manager, Tim Barrett, Shaver from St. Joseph, Sean Harrington, who's the junior manager. He goes on to be president of Billings Catholic Schools. We have our cheerleader, Cherie Bowman, who is also the co-editor of this outstanding annual, senior honor roll, 4 years. Debbie Hughes, senior, St. John's, 4 years track and field. Karen, I need some help here. Okay. I don't have anything on the juniors because as far as activities, but it was very competitive to make cheerleader. A lot of St. Anne's here. Nancy Yurkich had a great conversation, honor roll 4 years. She was the co-editor of that annual. Outstanding job. And really cared about the school. I mean, these kids really cared about their school. Kathy Wilkinson, junior, St. Anne's. Cindy Sullivan, junior, St. Anne's. Wow, what a drill team, I think called the Treasurettes, right?
Right.
Oh, man, look at this. And then look at this. It was cold up in Cutbank. An estimated crowd of 2,500, including a large number of Butte fans, gave a hearty round of applause to the Butte Central Band and Girls drill team for their halftime entertainment. The marchers, clad in short costumes and without hats or gloves, endured 20-degree temperature and a gusty wind. It was very cold. And the Cutbank cheerleaders didn't have any, sweatpants or, so they were exposed to very, very cold up there for that game. Cross country. The Butte Central girls. You know the deal. Swede Kennison, 28-1. 3 seasons, lost the first game to Butte High, barely. 28-0. Dropped the mic, goes to Tech in memory. Otto Simon was not on this team, but he really, great line coach, great basketball coach. He masterminded the win over Wolf Point in that the last Big 32 tournament. They figured out how to slow down Willie Weeks. And did a heck of a job, technician as far as line goes. And then Steve Stosh, we got Thatcher. One word, John Thatcher. He's got his beach nut right. Anyway, and so John last summer took me around Butte, where he lived, where he grew up. One of the many mines that his dad worked in. The mines basically shortened his dad's life. So he's a legend. And then he would go on to Tech with Kennison. Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay? He never dropped a pass at Western Montana College. Didn't play football at Butte Central. Great basketball player. And then Steve Stosich, wow. He's in the Hall of Fame for wrestling and girls softball, but the players speak highly of him. They spoke highly of all of their coaches.
He's a wrestling coach.
Wrestling, yeah. Right? Okay, wrestling at Butte Central, right?
The coach.
Yeah. At Butte High too?
Yeah.
Okay. And then girls softball,
Butte High.
Butte High, yeah. There he is. Great sideburns. All right. And here's the man, Schulte, senior, St. John's, lefty, Butte Sports Hall of Fame, 28-0 as a starter, 3-time state champion, Shrine Games starter, Carroll College career, Jim O'Day, had some good quotes on him that they're coming up as far as his ability to hide the football. Traps, Steve, 2-year starter. He came up big in that Wolf Point game. 1 interception and 1 fumble versus Wolf Point. Free safety. This guy, McCree. By the way, when I called up Ron. We're talking about Butte Central. The first guy he mentioned was McCree. That was the first guy he mentioned. So St. Anne's all conference, wide back like a wing back. Track 4 years, a lot of speed. There he is. Multiple threat on offense, considerable speed, accomplished defensive back, snake hit runner. He stretched the field. Made it really difficult to stop the Butte Central run. Ed Orizzotti, Eddie, St. Anne's, linebacker, tailback, Pork Chop Johns. Great linebacker and tailback, and an outstanding baseball player. I go to newspaper.com, his name came up like 900 and sometimes. I'm serious, for baseball. Catcher. Yeah. Dan Thomas, legend, in memory, tailback, linebacker. He started at all conferences as a junior. St. Anne's. In college, they called him, hey, if the Wolf Point guys call you the chairman, you're respected. Shrine Game, captain, all-conference running back, linebacker, and accomplished boxer. Yeah, there he is with his parents. Box, senior, 195, immaculate, fullback, defensive end, Shrine Game, starter, Carroll College, All-American, 2-way starter at Carroll, if you can believe that. All-conference 4 times. Rodeo. A good one. Rider, boxer, Butte Sports Hall of Fame. You just can't make this up. And then Little League, Matt Buckley hit 2 for 3 and drove in 3 runs for Dugan's Mortuary in a 7-6 win over.
Bucks' freshman year wrestled at 98 pounds.
Yeah. So so he grew. He dedicated to the weight room.
Yeah.
And then there was a fight on Main Street where Buckley was. He basically was fighting 3 older guys with weapons.
I was helped by Dan Thomas greatly.
Yeah. So Buckley's fighting for his life. It makes the paper. And then out of nowhere comes the cavalry, Dan Thomas, who knows how to box. And they lay, 3 guys are left on the pavement, man, sprawl with their weapons scattered. They get arrested. They serve 10 days in jail. You can't make this stuff up, so, yeah. That's who you're up against, Ron. Boxing, so, boxing culture. Big in the whole state of Montana, including cutbank. But Buckley was a boxer at Carroll. And a lot of guys were. Brent Goldrick boxed. Pat Pendergrass, who just left, he boxed. They came to see Buckley box, you know. And by the way, 2 women boxed for the first time in that smoker. And Louise Hoffman won. She went to Carroll. I think she beat a girl from Wyoming, from Glasgow. Yeah, there's Buckley there playing for Carroll. Please stop by the Knights tonight and hear some great stories about everybody. Dave Stillway, still senior, Immaculate Conception. They lived up Browns Gulch, country boy. All-conference kicker, inside linebacker for this cutbank game. Give him credit there. Greg Markovitz, senior, center, 190 pounds. St. Anne's, captains, all-conference. Shrine Game. Almost 5 of them, 5 were in the Shrine Game, 5 almost started. I think 3 or 4 started. Honor Roll 4 years, National Honor Society for 2 years. He couldn't make it today, but we met yesterday. Marco missed 2-a-day practices. He's captain. So he's in Europe like, drinking wine and being all bougie, and he shows up. And the seniors are upset with him, so they, you can give him a locker, and what else happened? Or you want to take this one, bro?
Yeah, we didn't give him a locker.
Yeah. So anyway, we got a haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a day.
Buzz Cumbo couldn't make it. Guard and defensive tackle from IC. He was starter for 2 years, which is pretty difficult to do on a Butte Central team. Two-way starter, 2 years, all conference offensive guard. He was in the Shrine Game, starter, 4 years honor roll, 2 years National Honor Society. Buzz, they were really deep. Pat Dudley, in memory, senior, 160 pounds, IC, guard, defensive end, National Honor Society. And then I got a great senior picture of him. Love the 70s tie here. Good, Pat. In memory. Sam, always smiling from what senior, 160 pounds, guard, defensive end, one of the toughest blanks I ever met. Tough but friendly, so kids would pick fights with them and he would just throw them down and they'd get up and hit him, and then, yeah, Sam would just, try not to hurt him. State champion wrestling, 74. Great wrestler. I guess he had tremendous strength. Honor roll 4 years. Yeah, look at that. He won that in basketball at the tournament. Sean Driscoll, senior, 175 pounds, St. Anne's, guard, defensive tackle, real tough guy, tough in the alley, as in street fights, played a multitude of positions. Mike Hagerty, another starter, inside linebacker, honor roll. Once a year, all 5 starting linemen meet in the Flathead Valley. They get together. These 5. Mike leads it. Thank you for coming. I think everybody were given these jackets, right?
Right.
So there's Mike's. Barry Brophy. Brophy's here today. Saw a lot of action as a junior. Went both ways as a senior. Should have been all conference, like all of them should have been all conference. Starting offensive tackle, starting defensive end. Moose is with us. Senior, 180 pounds, St. Pat's. He was the only one that went first team all conference both ways. And he played football at Carroll until he blew out his shoulder. Hoss McGinnis, senior, 215 pounds, St. Anne's, a tackle. 4 years of football at Butte Central. And he got an interception touchdown return versus Laurel. Not many people can say that. Pat, who just left, Andy. Tackle, boxer at Carroll, coached Central to the state basketball title in 1984, and then they took second to Livingston the next year. Thank you for coming. There's the headlines. There he is, future principal of Butte Central. Dave Couture, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a great baseball player. So went with one image here of him hitting a home run versus the Great Falls Electrics. But he was also a split end, a defensive end, and quite a puncher from St. Anne's, in memory. Tom McIntyre, senior. Second team both ways. 55-yard touchdown versus cutbank. State champion in track and field. Also an accomplished baseball player. There he is right there. He was a Montana Grizzly. And 3 touchdowns versus Hardin. And he wore the letter sweater there. Honor roll, 3 years. Ryan Cassidy, tight end, defensive end. Caught a couple long receptions during the year. 3-sport athlete, football 4 years. Played for the Butte Miners Legion and also basketball 3 years. Joe McCarthy, honor roll 4 years. St. Pat's, track and field 3 years. He was all-conference tight end. And 17-yard touchdown versus cutbank, and quite possibly the best-looking 70s polyester ever.
Jerry, he grew up here in the archives.
What's that? Yeah, in the fire station over here, yeah.
Dad was-
And then on the sideline, wishing to play, was Paul Dennehy. And Sweet played seniors. He's from St. Lawrence up there in Walkerville. Yeah, 2-year starter in basketball. When he got to play as a senior, Steve Sukut, all-state linebacker up there in Glasgow, said, man, he was helmet-to-helmet guy. And going to lead the Cats to the national title. Isn't that something? So you had Schulte at quarterback, and backup was Dennehy. It's amazing. And that's Bert Markovich at center there, yeah, from Butte Central. Big game with the Bulldogs. They played in the mud. It was 8-0 Central. They scored a safety. Schulte had a 1-yard rushing TD. Buckley 124 yards and 25 carries. Big win over Butte.
Gary, that was the last time Central beat.
Last time, yeah. Thank you for saying that.
It was 2-0 at halftime.
2-0. Wow, great memories. Lewistown, pretty easy win, but I'm going to let Jim take this one as far as, if you don't mind.
It was well, we played Lewistown for the first time. Mark's dad drove the bus. It was a Butte bus. Bubble gum and duct tape put it together. We made it halfway to Lewistown to start snowing. Got to the field and the generator was going out on the bus, so Steve's dad knew a mechanic and took the bus. We went into play. They swept the sidelines for 4 inches of snow to start the game. We lost the toss, so we had to kick off. We kicked off, it skidded in the snow, and Moose recovered the fumble on about the 6-yard line. 37 seconds after we kicked off, we scored. At the same time we kicked off, their assistant coach died of a heart attack up in the coach's box. So if the whole first quarter, here come the cop cars, here come the medics, they go up the ladder, down the ladder, and it was on our sideline. So Swede and Coach Stosius was telling, everybody get out of the way, just watch the game. So we go in at halftime, I come out to set for the second half, and one of the line crew was there. I said, what happened? He goes, oh, I'm sorry, son, but our assistant coach died of a heart attack. They kept him up in the crow's nest till we went in at halftime, then lowered him down in the gurney into the hearse and took him away.
And that assistant coach was from Westby. And he taught at Dooley at one time, and he was a math teacher with the family. So, sad incident there. Jim, can you sum up that bus trip home?
It was great. We got to just outside of Whitehall, and the generator was going out. The headlights wouldn't work, so we stopped and waited for the sun to come up. Then the team got out and pushed the bus down the on-ramp so Mark's dad could compression jerk it to start it. And then we made it home. But outside of Three Forks, we had to stop at 2 in the morning to have a potty break. So everybody got off the bus, guys, on Montana Interstate, nobody was there. We all get back on the bus and start going, except we left Steve McGree on the highway. We had to stop, and they backed down the highway about 1.5 miles to pick Steve up.
All right. Beat Livingston 30-6. This was a close game for a while, but Schulte had a great run at the end. Schulte started up the middle, broke away 3 tackles, cut to the side, and carried a Ranger into the end zone. Thank you, Jim, for saying that. There it is versus Livingston. That was a pretty good game for a while. Stills, this is Stills and
Orzati.
Dan. Yep.
Gary, that was they were the only team to score a touchdown
Yeah.
on a first team defense.
First team defense, yeah. Deer Lodge, pretty easy win. Buckley, Schulte, Thomas, and McGree did well. There's, they used to play down by the rodeo grounds, didn't they, in Deer Lodge?
It was in the rodeo.
Yeah. Maroons punished Laurel. Schulte, McGree, McIntyre, McGinnis, Krusich. A junior gets to play, towards the end. So, yeah, but Swede played a lot of his juniors and sophomores, or his second team that year. This was a big game for Swede. It's his former school. I heard he was especially emotional against Dillon. Sweet revenge. Heroes were Thomas, McGree, Schulte, Orzati, Paul Denny, Dennehy returned a punt, 54 yards. McIntyre, and Ed Orizzotti led the team in rushing that game. So big win there. And then Harden, Schulte had 4 TD passes. McGree did well. McIntyre caught 3. Thomas had a 64-yard rushing touchdown. And then if Butte Central would have won this game, they would have won the conference, correct? Is it? Yeah. So Butte Central 42, Butte Central 0. Traps returned a punt. So anyway, put the record on it. Here comes Miles City playoff game. Here we see Miles City's record again. Poplar almost won it. Wolf Point almost won it. Glasgow, but Miles City with Ron Murray. They won the state title in basketball the year before. He celebrated in track, prominent Legion. He's a star in that Shrine game, national champion, 76. Goes on to be the captain of the Bobcats after that. He's quite a competitor. I saw him play in high school. They came to play, and his brother Jeff's on that team. And then Jeff Lossett, and all 3 played for the Bobcats. Maroons ripped Miles City. It was an ice sheet. Ron said that was the coldest game he's ever played in his life. It was really slippery.
Jerry, that was the last game played on the dirt field in Naranche.
Okay. In the meantime, Cutbank wins 13-0 over Columbia Falls. Here we see on the first play versus Miles City. Look at, there's nobody in the stands, covered in snow. McGree scores on the kickoff. Yeah. We see Buckley making a block. I think Dennehy, and I think Moose.
Yeah, 7-6.
Yeah. Maroon hunts Wolves. First time in the playoffs. Class B did not have a state playoff. Cutbank, it snowed up there. You cleared the field at the last minute, right, Ron? Pretty much?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just the way.
Oh man, here comes the Maroons to the high line. Shelby principal called me. He said, the day before, Butte Central shows up on Thursday, Kennison knows Jim Keith, principal of Shelby. Says, I want that Shelby football field cleared of snow so we can practice. I need a warm barn for the bus and a few other demands. And then Jim invited the Butte coaches over for dinner for venison. He also invited the Shelby coaches over. And they brought a tape with them, a film, which I understand you weren't too happy about because I think the Northern A agreed you would not exchange film for the playoffs or something like that. So, I'm probably messing up this story, but I just want to throw that in. We don't have a lot of pictures of the game, but here we have Steve Smith being tackled by Barry Brophy. This is Clark Smith. Here's Rick throwing a block. Help, this is Ed Orizzotti. I think this is Stillwagon. 27-6 Butte Central. They jumped out 27-0. But if you talk to Butte Central players, to a man, they say Cutbank was tough. They were tough. And Schulte, man, hit the ball well. And the first few plays of the game, Barry said that Cutbank was knocking him back pretty good, right?
Then
Yeah.
they punted and the punt hit our receiver and they recovered the fumble and scored.
Okay. Yeah, jump in. So here's scoring. Dan got a 2-yard touchdown probably off that, right, Rick?
Yep.
Then McIntyre, 55-yard pass to Schulte. And Mike Sheridan was corner on McIntyre. And he was coached up. Do not look at Schulte. You watch your man. Mike was watching Schulte, and I guess he hit that football, and boom, but McIntyre was gone. Schulte, 12-yard run. McCarthy, 17-yard pass. So they're up 27-0 at half. And it's cold. Anybody else?
Oh, keep going.
Okay. What'd you tell the boys at halftime, Ron? Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay. All right.
Well, I would say they came out to play though, Jerry.
Yeah, they came to play. In fact, Moose told the Butte Central guys, hey, if we get up by 40, game's over with. Let's get out of here, it's cold, right?
Yeah, no, that wasn't happening.
That wasn't happening. Schulte was, okay, this is from Sheridan. Schulte was a magician with the football. He knew how to hide it. He was left-handed. He burned me on the third play of the game. My eyes were on him instead of my assignment. And I think that was that Tom McIntyre touchdown. Jim O'Day, he was a master at hiding the football. Great quote. I can still see him with his left hand behind his back. Dan Duke versus Buzz Combo all week, man. You know, hey, we gotta handle combo. Danny Duke played against Buzz Combo. So said Dan to Mike Sheridan, how did it go against Combo? Well, I could move him, but he would roll into a ball. I couldn't move him anymore. I couldn't block him. Yeah, the clock struck midnight for 3 Highline teams. So Butte Central beat Havre 71, Wolf Point 72, and Cut Bank at 73. We'll talk more about that game tonight. I apologize. There were some shenanigans that happened in Shelby. Central stayed in Shelby. So if anybody wants to talk about that now, they can. I wasn't there. I've heard stories. So.
I don't know if we can cover it tonight.
Okay, we'll cover that tonight.
Film at 11.
All right.